For nearly 4 decades, she remained a faceless victim, her identity lost to time and the chilling brutality of a serial killer. Known only as Horseshoe Harriet, her skeletal remains, discovered in 1984 near a serene lake north of Anchorage, symbolized one of Alaska's most enduring mysteries. Today, thanks to the remarkable advancements in forensic genetic genealogy and the relentless dedication of cold case investigators, this Jane Doe has finally reclaimed her name, Robin Pelky. Her identification in 2021 not only provided long-awaited answers to a grieving family, but also underscored a pivotal shift in how law enforcement tackles seemingly unsolvable crimes. The story of Robin Pelky's journey from anonymity to identification began on the 25th of April, 1984, when skeletal remains were discovered near Horseshoe Lake, north of Palmer, Alaska. The remains were determined to be those of a young woman who had suffered both a gunshot wound and a stab wound, suggesting a violent end. The scene was remote, indicative of a deliberate attempt to conceal the victim. Law enforcement quickly responded, and an immediate investigation was launched. Without any identifying documents or distinct physical features, and due to the lack of identifying information, the woman was labeled Horseshoe Harriet, a grim nickname derived from her discovery site. Forensic pathologists meticulously examined the remains, determining she was a white female, likely between 17 and 23 years old. Despite comprehensive checks against existing missing persons reports in Alaska and across the United States, no matches were found. Horseshoe Harriet was formally designated a Jane Doe and was respectfully interred in the Anchorage Memorial Park Cemetery, her grave a silent testament to an unresolved tragedy. The discovery of Horseshoe Harriet was inextricably linked to one of Alaska's darkest criminal chapters, the active years of Robert Christian Hansen. A seemingly ordinary baker and family man, Hansen was secretly a prolific serial killer. Operating with chilling precision, Hansen preyed on vulnerable women in Anchorage, particularly those on the fringes of society, including dancers and sex workers. His modus operandi was uniquely horrific. He was notorious for abducting women, sometimes sexually assaulting them, and then, using his private plane or car, transporting them to isolated, desolate areas of the Alaskan wilderness. There, he would release them, embarking on a twisted hunt before ultimately murdering them with a rifle or knife. His calculated and brutal methods earned him the chilling moniker, the Butcher Baker. Hansen's reign of terror culminated in his arrest in October 1983. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including a meticulously compiled map of grave sites and crucial testimony from a surviving victim, Cindy Paulson Hansen eventually confessed. In 1984, he pleaded guilty to ending the lives of 4 women whose remains had been found in Alaska between 1980 and 1983. He later admitted to killing a total of 17 women, offering details that allowed investigators to locate many of their remains. Robin Pelky, identified as Horseshoe Harriet, was among these 17 victims. Despite this revelation, her true identity remained unknown for many years. Hansen died in prison on the 21st of August, 2014, while serving his 461-year sentence without parole, taking any remaining secrets with him. But the relentless pursuit of justice for his victims continued. To understand the context of Hansen's crimes and the vulnerability of his victims, it's important to consider Anchorage in the early 1980s. This was a period of significant economic boom in Alaska, fueled by the Trans-Alaska Pipeline and soaring oil prices. The city experienced rapid population growth, attracting people from all walks of life, often seeking new opportunities. This influx also created a transient population, making it easier for individuals to disappear without immediate notice. While Anchorage was developing its civic infrastructure, its burgeoning economy also presented social challenges. A certain anonymity could be found in the rapidly expanding city, and the vulnerable, transient individuals who arrived often lacked strong social safety nets, making them easy targets for predators like Hansen. The downtown areas, with their bars and adult entertainment venues, were known haunts for those seeking to exploit others, and Hansen meticulously exploited this environment. Robin Pelky herself, as investigations would later reveal, was living on the streets of Anchorage during this period. For decades, the identification of Horseshoe Harriet remained an elusive goal. Traditional forensic methods, while advanced for their time, simply lacked the capability to make a definitive match without a direct comparative DNA sample or a strong investigative lead. Almost 2 decades after her discovery, her remains were exhumed in 2003 in an attempt to extract a DNA sample from her bones. The goal was to match her profile with entries in the Federal Missing Person Database, NamUs. Despite these efforts, no matches were found, and her identity remained unknown. A second exhumation took place in 2014. Again, DNA was collected and uploaded to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Missing Person Database. However, just like the earlier attempt, this search yielded no results, and she continued to be known only by her nickname. Years passed with no progress until a new approach was taken. The turning point for the Horseshoe Harriet case, and many others like it, came with the advent and popularization of forensic genetic genealogy, FGG. This groundbreaking discipline marries traditional DNA analysis with extensive genealogical research, leveraging publicly accessible DNA databases used by individuals for ancestry tracing or family tree construction. The process involves taking an unknown DNA sample, creating a comprehensive DNA profile, uploading it to public databases, identifying distant relatives, and then constructing a family tree to narrow down potential identities. In August 2021, her DNA profile was uploaded into a public genetic genealogy database, opening up the possibility of identifying her through relatives rather than direct matches. This technique, which had successfully helped solve other cold cases, brought renewed hope to a case that had long gone cold. With the help of this database, investigators began tracing genetic connections through multiple close matches. Through meticulous genealogical research conducted by Parabon Nanolabs, working hand-in-hand with the Alaska Bureau of Investigation, ABI, the intricate family tree began to take shape. The findings pointed to a potential match, a woman named Robin Pelky. Born in 1963 in Denver, Colorado, Robin Pelky's life trajectory was traced. As a teenager, she moved to Arkansas, but by 1981, she had returned to Alaska to live with her father and stepmother. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, she lived in Anchorage, a city she would remain in until her sudden disappearance. By the early 1980s, she had become unhoused and was living on the streets of Anchorage. However, by late 1982 or early 1983, she had vanished without a trace. Crucially, her parents, now deceased, had not reported her missing, explaining why traditional missing persons databases yielded no results for so long. Based on this strong possibility, Alaska Bureau of Investigation reached out to the Arkansas State Police for assistance. The agency then contacted a very close relative of Robin's and obtained a DNA sample from them, which was sent to the State of Alaska Scientific Crime Detection Laboratory in Anchorage for analysis. By September 2021, the results from the kinship DNA analysis definitively confirmed what investigators had hoped: Horseshoe Harriet was indeed Robin Pelky. Her surviving family members were finally notified, ending decades of agonizing uncertainty and providing a measure of peace. The identification of Robin Pelky stands as a powerful testament to the advancements in forensic science and the unwavering commitment of cold case investigators. It highlights how cutting-edge technology, combined with meticulous human effort, can bring justice and answers to families affected by long unsolved crimes. It also sheds light on the often overlooked victims of serial killers, particularly those from vulnerable populations who may not have been reported missing. While Robin Pelky's story now has a resolution, the work of the Alaska Bureau of Investigation's Cold Case Investigation Unit continues. One of Robert Hansen's 17 confessed victims, known simply as Eklutna Annie, remains unidentified. Investigators are actively pursuing similar genetic genealogy avenues in the hope of returning her name to her and providing her family with the same closure that Robin Pelky's relatives have finally found. The success of the Pelky case serves as both a beacon of hope and a reminder that no victim is truly forgotten, and no case is ever truly closed until every possible avenue for identification and justice has been exhausted. For over 4 decades, a chilling mystery lingered within the infamous crawlspace of serial killer John Wayne Gacy's Chicago area home. The identities of the young men whose lives he brutally extinguished and whose remains lay buried for years. Among these nameless victims, one was simply known as victim number 5. Then, in October 2021, a monumental breakthrough in forensic science and genealogy finally gave him back his name. Francis Wayne Alexander. Francis Wayne Alexander, known to his family as Wayne, was born in North Carolina and later spent time living in New York before making his way to Chicago in February 1975. At the time of his death, he would have been approximately 21 or 22 years old. While precise details of his upbringing and early life are not extensively publicized, he had a mother, 2 half-sisters, and 2 half-brothers, who were identified through DNA testing decades after his disappearance. His sister, Carolyn Sanders, later recalled that she hadn't spoken to him since his 1975 wedding, but noted that he would call their mother every month, suggesting a continuous bond with his family despite his move. She also cherished a note from him that read, "Hey baby, I'll see you soon because I love ya, Wayne," which gave her hope of a visit that never came. Upon his arrival in the Chicago area, Alexander lived in an apartment located in the 900 block of West Winona in the Uptown neighborhood. During his time there, he reportedly worked in a number of clubs and bars in the area. In terms of relationships, Alexander was married for approximately 3 months. This marriage ended in divorce in 1975, the same year he relocated to Chicago. Beyond this brief marriage, no other specific relationships are detailed in the available information. His family, while not reporting him missing, held a painful hope that he simply wanted to be left alone, which indicates a degree of independence or perhaps a desire for a fresh start that his family respected. The last known record of his existence was a traffic ticket he received in Chicago in January 1976. Financial records for that year showed he earned very little income, suggesting a brief and struggling period before his life was tragically cut short. Investigators believe he was killed by Gacy sometime between early 1976 and early 1977. His body was among the 26 sets of human remains discovered in Gacy's notorious crawl space on the 26th of December, 1978. Intriguingly, authorities noted that Alexander lived in an area frequently visited by Gacy, and where other identified victims of the killer clown had also resided. How their paths specifically crossed remains an unanswered question, adding another layer to the tragedy. The case of John Wayne Gacy's unidentified victims gained renewed attention in 2011 when Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart reopened the investigation. Recognizing the advancements in DNA technology, Dart's office made the groundbreaking decision to exhume the remains of 8 unidentified Gacy victims, including Alexander's, with the aim of using modern DNA testing to give them their names back. The process of identifying Francis Wayne Alexander was a testament to the power of investigative genetic genealogy. The Cook County Sheriff's Police collaborated with the DNA Doe Project, DDP, a nonprofit organization that specializes in using genetic information to locate relatives of unidentified deceased individuals. The identification unfolded as follows. A DNA profile was extracted from one of Alexander's molars, a crucial piece of evidence that had been preserved for decades. This DNA profile was then uploaded to public genealogy websites, where it was compared to genetic profiles voluntarily submitted by individuals seeking to map their family lineage. The DNA Doe Project's team of dedicated volunteer genealogists, through painstaking research, identified potential relatives, including second cousins, by building extensive family trees. With these leads, the Cook County Sheriff's Office contacted Alexander's family. DNA samples were collected from Alexander's mother and a half-brother. These samples provided a strong genetic association with the remains, unequivocally confirming Francis Wayne Alexander as victim number 5. Beyond the DNA, sheriff's detectives meticulously reviewed financial records, public records, post-mortem reports, and other archival data to further confirm Alexander's identity and establish a timeline of his life and disappearance. The January 1976 traffic ticket and sparse financial records for that year solidified the time frame of his likely murder. The formal notification to Alexander's family came on the 22nd of October 2021. For his mother, his half-sisters, and half-brothers, the news brought a complex mix of grief and profound, albeit heartbreaking, closure. In a statement released through the Cook County Sheriff's Office, Alexander's family, including his sister Carolyn Sanders, expressed their profound emotions. It is hard, even 45 years later, to know the fate of our beloved Wayne. He was killed at the hands of a vile and evil man. Our hearts are heavy and our sympathies go out to the other victims' families. Our only comfort is knowing this killer no longer breathes the same air as we do. We can now lay to rest what happened and move forward by honoring Wayne. The family's decision not to file a missing persons report reflected a common and poignant reality for families of missing adults. The hope, or sometimes the resignation, that their loved one simply chose to live a different life, independent of their past. Sheriff Dart acknowledged the difficulty of these conversations, particularly with Alexander's mother, who was still alive to receive the news. The identification of Francis Wayne Alexander marked a significant victory in the ongoing efforts to bring dignity and closure to Gacy's victims and their families. He was the third Gacy victim to be identified since the 2011 exhumations following William George Bundy, identified in 2011, and James Byron Hakinson, identified in 2017. Despite these successes, 5 other victims of John Wayne Gacy still remain unidentified. The Cook County Sheriff's Office continues its commitment to utilizing the latest advancements in technology, including genetic genealogy, to identify these remaining individuals, ensuring that no victim of this notorious serial killer remains nameless. The case of Francis Wayne Alexander stands as a powerful testament to the relentless pursuit of justice and the enduring hope for answers, even after many decades. For nearly 4 decades, the disappearance of Grand Isle lounge owner Lester Rome haunted Louisiana. What began as a baffling missing persons case in 1984 evolved into a decades-long cold case known as the Man in the Well, finally reaching a dramatic conclusion in late 2024. This is the story of a mystery that spanned generations, solved through relentless investigation and modern forensic science. Lester Rome, a 57-year-old proprietor of a lounge in the small, picturesque coastal community of Grand Isle, Louisiana, was last seen on the 9th of January, 1984. His family, growing increasingly concerned, reported him missing. The initial investigation quickly focused on Patricia Tito, then a teenager and Rome's live-in girlfriend. Tito spun a tale to both curious residents and law enforcement. She claimed she had driven Rome to the airport for a trip and that he had mysteriously bequeathed ownership of his lounge to her before departing. In the immediate aftermath, Tito continued to reside in Rome's home and operate his business. However, suspicion lingered. Rome's brother eventually arrived on the island and evicted Tito, further deepening the enigma surrounding Lester Rome's whereabouts. Without a body, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, which had taken over the investigation, found their leads growing cold, and the case was suspended. 2 years after Rome's disappearance, in April 1986, a grim discovery was made nearly 200 miles away. In a water well on a rural property in Sabine Parish, Louisiana, skeletal human remains were found. The remote location and the lack of immediate identification meant the victim became known only as the Man in the Well. For 35 years, these unidentified bones lay in evidence, a silent testament to an unsolved crime. Despite the passage of time, the efforts to identify the Man in the Well continued sporadically. A crucial breakthrough came in 2013 when Louisiana State University's Forensic Anthropology and Computer Enhancement Services, FACES, laboratory made a potential connection. The recovered skeletal remains showed embedded shotgun pellets in the pelvic area, a detail that remarkably matched information about Lester Rome, who was known to have sustained a shotgun wound to his abdomen years prior to his disappearance. While this offered a promising lead, it wasn't until 2021 that the definitive confirmation arrived. Renewed efforts, including further searches of the well by the Central Sabine Fire Department's Confined Space Entry Team, yielded additional remains. With the aid of advanced DNA analysis, the bones from the well were unequivocally identified as those of Lester Rome. The long-standing mystery of the Man in the Well was finally resolved. The identification of Lester Rome's remains sent shockwaves through the investigative community and reignited the stalled murder inquiry. The focus quickly shifted back to Patricia Tito, who by this time was serving a 40-year prison sentence for a 2003 manslaughter conviction in Shreveport. During interviews with detectives from both the Sabine Parish and Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Offices, Tito's narrative began to unravel and shift. She initially claimed to be merely a witness to Rome's murder, blaming another man, Devon Avard Sibley, and suggesting the motive was a drug debt. She further asserted that the murder had taken place in Jefferson Parish, with Rome's body later transported to Sabine Parish for disposal. As the investigation intensified and Tito was brought back to Jefferson Parish for questioning in 2022, her story evolved again. She alleged that Rome had made sexual advances toward her during a failed business arrangement, and that he was killed shortly thereafter. While she maintained she was only present and placed the primary blame on Sibley, investigators learned that the well where Rome's remains were found was on property once owned by Sibley's family. Despite her continued protestations of innocence, the evidence of Tito's sustained concealment of information and her evolving stories mounted. In December 2023, a Jefferson Parish grand jury indicted Patricia Tito on a charge of second-degree murder in Lester Rome's death. On the 13th of November, 2024, in a Jefferson Parish courtroom, the saga of Lester Rome's disappearance and murder finally concluded. Patricia Tito, at 60 years old, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Her plea was entered under North Carolina v. Alford, a legal maneuver that allows a defendant to plead guilty while still maintaining their innocence, acknowledging that the prosecution possesses sufficient evidence for a conviction. Judge Danielle Taylor of the 24th Judicial District Court accepted Tito's plea, and after Tito waived delays, sentenced her to the mandatory life in prison without benefit of probation, parole, or suspension of sentence. The conviction of Patricia Tito brought an end to a case that had perplexed investigators and haunted a community for 40 years, demonstrating the enduring power of forensic science and determined police work to bring closure. No matter how much time has passed,